Babysitting seems like easy money until you realize you're not alone. I was 17 when this happened. I had been babysitting for a family in my neighborhood for about 6 months, and they always trusted me with their two kids, a boy who was 8 and a girl who was 5. Their house was a little old, sitting at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, surrounded by large oak trees. On this particular Friday night, the parents were heading out to dinner and told me they'd be back by midnight. Everything started off normal. The kids and I played some board games, then I tucked them into bed around 9. The house became unusually quiet once they were asleep. I settled onto the couch with my homework and some TV playing softly in the background. That's when I heard it, a faint tapping noise coming from the back of the house. At first I thought it might be tree branches brushing against the siding, but the tapping was too rhythmic. Tap, pause, tap, pause. It sounded deliberate. Trying not to freak myself out, I walked to the back door and turned on the porch light. Nothing, just the dark yard and the swaying branches of the oak tree. I locked the door, went back to the living room, and tried to shake it off. About 20 minutes later, I heard it again, this time louder. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the kitchen window. My heart started to race. I slowly peeked around the corner, and my stomach dropped. A man was standing outside, his face half hidden in the shadows, his hand tapping on the glass. He didn't look drunk or like he was lost. He just stared at me, completely still, with the faintest smile on his lips. I froze, not knowing what to do. After what felt like forever, he lifted a finger and slowly dragged it across the window, like he was drawing an invisible line. Then he pointed upward, toward the hallway, where the kids were sleeping. That was enough to jolt me back into reality. I grabbed the cordless phone, locked myself in the bathroom, and called the police. When they arrived, the man was gone. The officers checked the yard and found fresh footprints in the mud beneath the window. The unsettling part: the prints circled the house several times. He had been watching us long before I noticed. The family installed a security system after that, and I never babysat there again. Even now, I sometimes see that faint smile when I close my eyes at night. When I was in college, I picked up babysitting jobs here and there for extra cash. One night, I agreed to watch a 10-year-old boy named Daniel. His parents were going to a late-night party, and the only instructions they gave me were that Daniel should be in bed by 10 and that I could help myself to the snacks in the kitchen. The house was huge, 3 floors, with a basement that had its own playroom. Daniel wanted to show me his toys down there before bed. We went down together, and I noticed how cold and dim it felt, even with the lights on. He played for about half an hour, then I convinced him to head upstairs and go to bed. By 11, the house was quiet. I curled up on the sofa with my phone, scrolling through social media. That's when the landline rang. Nobody uses landlines anymore, but I figured maybe the parents had forgotten their cell phones and were checking in. I answered silence. I said hello 3 times, but nobody replied. I hung up. A few minutes later, it rang again. This time, I heard breathing on the other end. Slow, heavy. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. I hung up again and tried to convince myself it was just some prank call. But then I noticed something. The call wasn't coming from unknown number. The caller ID said basement. My stomach turned to ice. The house had multiple landline extensions, and the one in the basement was apparently calling me. I tried to steady my hands as I picked up the phone again, but the line went dead this time. I locked the front door, checked on Daniel, he was fast asleep, and then sat in the hallway with every light on until his parents returned around 1 a.m. When I told them what happened, they went pale. The father admitted that the basement phone hadn't been connected in years. It was just an old receiver that sat on a table down there. To this day, I wonder if someone was in the basement with us that night, or if something else was using that line. A friend of mine, Emily, shared this story, and it still gives me goosebumps. She had just started babysitting for a family who lived in a big farmhouse on the outskirts of town. They had a 3-year-old girl who was obsessed with dolls, and her bedroom was filled with them. On the first night Emily babysat, she put the little girl to bed around 8:30 and stayed downstairs reading. Around 10, she heard soft footsteps upstairs. Assuming the child had gotten out of bed, she went up to check. The girl was sound asleep, tucked under the covers, but one of the dolls, which had been on the dresser earlier, was now sitting on the windowsill. Creeped out, Emily put it back, checked the closet just in case, and went downstairs again. About 20 minutes later, the footsteps came back, but heavier this time, almost like an adult pacing. Emily grabbed her phone and crept upstairs again. The hallway was dark, and at the very end was the girl's room. The door was slightly open. She pushed it gently and saw the girl still asleep, but all of her dolls were now arranged in a perfect circle around the bed. Emily's hands shook as she gathered them and put them back where they belonged. She told herself the girl must have done it before falling asleep, though deep down she knew that wasn't possible. She tried to calm herself, but just as she was about to leave the room, the little girl whispered without opening her eyes, "Don't let her play with us anymore." Emily froze. "Who?" she asked quietly. The girl shifted in her sleep and murmured, "The lady from the upstairs room." Emily said she grabbed her stuff, waited on the porch until the parents came home, and never took another babysitting job at that house again. The family moved out 6 months later, claiming the house was too old and drafty. But locals in the town say that farmhouse has always been haunted by a woman who lost her child there decades ago. When I was 16, I babysat for a family that lived in a 2-story townhouse. Their youngest daughter, Mia, was 4, and she had the habit of asking me to check her closet every night before bed. She said the man liked to hide there. I figured it was just a kid's imagination. That night, I tucked her in, opened the closet, and showed her it was empty. She seemed reassured and quickly fell asleep. Later, around midnight, I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone when I heard the soft creak of a door upstairs. I assumed Mia had woken up. When I went to check, she was still asleep, but her closet door was wide open. I felt uneasy, so I shut it quietly and started walking back toward the stairs. That's when I heard something that made my blood run cold. A deep, raspy whisper came from behind the door. "She can't see me when you're here." My entire body froze. I didn't even breathe. I wanted to open the closet, but every instinct screamed at me to get out. I scooped Mia up, carried her downstairs, and waited by the front door until her parents came home. When I told them what happened, they exchanged a strange look. Finally, the mom admitted that Mia often told them about the man in the closet, but they dismissed it as make-believe. After that night, they moved her into a different bedroom. To this day, I can still hear that voice in my head. It wasn't a child's imagination. I know what I heard. Back in high school, I babysat for a family who lived in a house surrounded by woods. The nearest neighbor was at least half a mile away. The night was calm. The little boy I was watching was asleep upstairs, and I was sitting in the living room reading. Suddenly, there was a knock at the front door. 3 slow knocks. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the parents never said anyone would be coming by. I looked through the peephole, but there was no one there, just darkness. I tried to shake it off, but about 10 minutes later, the knocks came again, this time louder. I checked the peephole again, still nothing. Then I heard it, a soft, childlike giggle from the porch. I backed away from the door, grabbed the phone, and called the dad. He told me not to open it under any circumstances. He said he and his wife would be home in 20 minutes. As soon as I hung up, the knocking turned violent, pounding so hard the door rattled. The giggling turned into what sounded like multiple voices, all laughing at once. I clutched the phone and sat on the stairs, heart racing. Suddenly it stopped. Silence. By the time the parents pulled into the driveway, everything was quiet again. The dad checked outside with a flashlight, but didn't find a single footprint in the snow leading to the porch. I never babysat for them again, and to this day, I wonder who or what was trying to get inside that house.